My wife once told me, "You make me feel like I'm the only reason you breathe." At the time, I thought it was the most romantic thing she'd ever said. I didn't realize it was the beginning of her resentment. My name's Jacob Ellington. I'm 32, and for most of my marriage I thought love meant devotion, the kind that fills every crack of your day. Claire and I met 6 years ago in a coffee shop on the outskirts of Nashville. She was studying interior design, all ambition and soft laughter. I was working construction, saving up to start my own small business. She had plans for everything, her dream house, her career, the kind of dog we'd have someday. I just wanted to be near her. Our first year of marriage felt like a movie. We moved into a modest 2-bedroom home near Franklin, with creaky floors and a porch swing that leaned a little to the right. I built her a garden bed in the backyard, and she filled it with wildflowers that never grew quite the way she wanted, yet she loved them anyway. I thought that meant she could love anything, including me, even when I wasn't perfect. But when my father passed away 2 years in, something inside me broke quietly. I stopped going out with friends. I came home from work exhausted, not just from lifting drywall, but from carrying an emptiness I didn't know how to name. Claire was my light, my only comfort. She'd come home and I'd watch her move around the kitchen, needing her in ways I never admitted out loud. When she laughed with someone on the phone, I'd feel jealous of the sound. She never complained, not at first. But over time I noticed her smiles fade quicker. When I'd text her during her design projects, she'd take longer to reply. One night she came home later than usual, smelling faintly of expensive perfume, something floral, not hers. I didn't ask questions then. I was too scared of the answers. Instead, I tried harder. I started cooking dinner before she got home, left little notes on her mirror. "You're my anchor." "You make life make sense." She'd smile, kiss me, and then retreat into her phone or her laptop. I mistook silence for peace. Then one evening, while we sat watching a show neither of us cared about, she sighed and said softly, "Jacob, you've got to find something that's yours." "I can't be your everything." Her voice was gentle, but her words cracked me open. I laughed it off, said, "You are my everything." She didn't laugh. She turned to me, eyes tired, and whispered, "That's the problem." That night, when I lay awake listening to her steady breathing, I told myself I'd change. I just didn't realize how much that promise would end up costing her. Change doesn't happen like a switch. It happens in quiet, clumsy steps. After that night, I told myself I'd do what Claire asked. I'd find a life that didn't orbit her, so I started small. Signed up for a woodworking class at the community center on Route 31, something I used to love before life turned into long shifts and long silences. I joined a weekend basketball league in town, mostly guys in their 30s, pretending their knees still worked. It felt good, awkward but good, to sweat for something that wasn't just work. Claire noticed at first. "Look at you," she said one morning, watching me lace up my sneakers. "I like this version of you, active, confident." I grinned. "You mean less clingy?" She smirked. I didn't say that, but there was warmth in her eyes, and for a moment I thought maybe this was what we needed, a little space to breathe. Weeks went by. I texted her less, filled my evenings with sawdust and paint fumes instead of waiting for her key to turn in the lock. The more I built projects, the less I built expectations. And yet, the distance between us didn't shrink. It grew. She started working later, saying clients needed last-minute revisions or showroom visits. Her phone buzzed more often, screen tilted just slightly away from me. I told myself it was nothing, that trust meant not asking. But trust without communication is just silence wearing a halo. One Friday night, I came home early from the shop, carrying a small oak jewelry box I'd carved for her birthday. Her car was in the driveway, but the lights were dim. I found her in the living room, sitting cross-legged with her laptop open, smiling in that effortless way she hadn't smiled at me in months. "Hey," I said softly. She startled, slammed the lid shut, then forced a smile. "Hey, you're home early?" "Yeah, thought we could get dinner." "Oh, I already ate," she said, too quickly. "With who?" "Just the girls. You know how it is." Except I didn't. I couldn't remember the last time her girls had come around. That night, she went to bed early. I stayed on the couch, staring at the muted TV, the jewelry box sitting beside me like a question I couldn't answer. The next day, she was sweet again, kissed my cheek, asked about my class, acted as if nothing had happened. I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe us. But love built on denial rots from the inside out. By late October, the air carried that Tennessee chill that makes your breath visible. Claire said she had a weekend work retreat in Chattanooga. I kissed her goodbye, watched her drive off in her grey Honda, and told myself everything was fine. Saturday evening, I was sanding a new chair in the garage when my buddy Eli stopped by with beers. "You seen Claire around town?" he asked casually. "No, she's at some design retreat." He hesitated, then looked down. "Huh, must have been someone else then." "Someone else?" I frowned. "Yeah. Someone who looked a lot like her at Miller's Tavern last night. With some guy." The chair leg slipped from my hand and hit the concrete with a thud. I forced a laugh that sounded too hollow. "Probably not her." Eli nodded, but his eyes said otherwise. That night I sat on the porch swing alone, listening to the crickets hum over the sound of distant traffic. The jewelry box still sat on the table beside me, smooth and perfect, waiting to hold something meaningful. Funny thing about wood, it shows every scar, every pressure, every time it's been reshaped. I ran my fingers over the grain and thought, maybe people aren't that different. There's something strange about getting stronger. You expect it to fix things, but sometimes it just sharpens your vision. By December, my woodworking side projects started turning into commissions, coffee tables, custom frames, little handcrafted pieces people ordered through word of mouth. I opened a small Instagram page called Ellington Designs, mostly for fun. Claire liked my first few posts, left a heart emoji once. After that, nothing. She still came home late, still smelled faintly of someone else's cologne, clean, musky, unfamiliar. I catch the scent when she leaned over to kiss me, and every time it felt like betrayal whispered against my skin, but I didn't ask. Not yet. Instead, I started therapy at the suggestion of my friend Eli's sister, who was a counselor in town. Her name was Dr. Lyman, middle-aged, kind, but sharp in the way she listened. On my first session, she asked, "Jacob, what does love look like to you?" I told her, "It looks like needing someone so much you'd do anything to keep them." She smiled sadly. "That's not love. That's dependence dressed in devotion." That line hit me harder than any accusation could. Dependence dressed in devotion. I built my marriage around her happiness and called it care. And now, as she drifted away, I realized I'd lost the ability to stand alone. Christmas came and went, quietly. Claire claimed she had to visit her mother in Atlanta for a few days. She left on the 22nd. I spent the holiday in silence, fixing an old dining table someone from church gave me. Each scrape of the sander felt like peeling away something dead. When she came back, she was glowing. Too much. She hugged me, said she missed me, but her eyes didn't match her words. "Everything okay?" I asked. She brushed her hair behind her ear, looked away. "Yeah, just tired." A lie spoken gently still cuts. In January, I noticed she started guarding her phone like it held state secrets. One night, I walked into the kitchen and caught a glimpse of a message lighting up her screen. "Last night was perfect." My stomach twisted. I didn't confront her right away. I took a long walk instead, under the pale winter moon that hung like a quiet witness over our neighborhood. I thought about every time she'd told me to be more independent, to find myself again. And suddenly I saw the irony. She'd built her freedom out of my devotion, and now, as I learned to stand on my own, her excuses began to crumble. The next day, I didn't tell her I'd seen the text. I simply started acting different, focused, calm. I worked longer hours, joined a weekend flea market to sell my furniture. I stopped waiting for her texts. I stopped asking where she was going. The first time she noticed, she frowned. "You're quiet lately." "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, "just finding things that are mine again." She looked uneasy, as if she'd lost control of a script she'd written. That night, as I lay in bed beside her, listening to her steady breathing, I realized something profound. The version of me she'd wanted to fix was gone, and the man replacing him wasn't someone she could manipulate anymore. There's a kind of silence that doesn't mean peace. It's the sound of something breaking slowly, just quietly enough that you can pretend it isn't. By late February, Claire and I were more like polite roommates than a married couple. We still said good morning, still kissed before leaving for work, but everything in between felt rehearsed. Two actors performing a marriage that had already closed. One night, she said she was going out with co-workers after a project launch. I nodded, didn't question it. She froze for a second. "You're not going to ask where?" "No, you deserve your space." It sounded neutral, but it landed like an accusation. She came home past midnight, smelling like whiskey and something expensive. Not hers, not ours. I watched her slip out of her heels, whisper a half-hearted apology, and disappear into the shower. I stayed on the couch, staring at the faint reflection of her silhouette through the fogged glass of our bedroom window. I could have confronted her right then, but I wanted clarity, not chaos. The next evening, I left my phone recording in the kitchen while pretending to head to my workshop. I sat in my truck a block away, engine off, listening to the soft hum of the neighborhood. I told myself it was about truth, not revenge, not paranoia, just truth. When I came back an hour later, she was in the kitchen on a video call, whispering into her phone. "I can't tonight. He's home, yeah." "I miss you too." My chest tightened, but my eyes stayed dry. That was when I realized something terrifyingly calm. I didn't feel shattered. I felt done. The next morning, she sat at the table scrolling through her emails. I set a cup of coffee in front of her. "Claire," I said quietly. "Hmm?" I know, she froze. "Know what? That you're seeing someone? You can stop pretending." The color drained from her face. "Jacob, I'm not angry," I said, cutting her off. "I'm just..." "Finish pretending this is love." Her eyes welled up, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or fear. "Jacob, I didn't mean for this to happen." "You pulled away." "No, Claire." "You told me to. You told me to find myself again. And I did." "I just didn't realize finding myself would mean losing you." She reached for my hand. "I was lonely. You shut down after your dad died." I felt invisible. "I get that," I said. "But invisibility doesn't justify betrayal." She started crying then, soft and desperate. The old me would have folded instantly, would have comforted her, would have believed her every apology. But I just stood up, grabbed my coat and said, "You wanted a man who didn't need you to breathe. Congratulations, Claire. You made him." When I walked out of that kitchen, something inside me shifted permanently. The ache was still there, sure, but beneath it, a quiet strength began to bloom. That night, I slept at Eli's place. I didn't tell anyone what happened, didn't post about it, didn't call her. The next morning, I emailed our landlord asking about lease termination options. She called me 12 times. I didn't answer once. The first week after I left felt like standing in the wreckage of a house I'd built with my bare hands. Empty, but still mine. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment above an auto shop off Highway 96. The ceilings were low, and the floor creaked every time I moved, but it was mine. The air smelled faintly of sawdust from the workshop below. Somehow it felt honest. I bought a second-hand table and moved my woodworking tools into the corner. Started making furniture in the evenings. The sound of the sander became therapy. Every piece I finished felt like reclaiming a piece of myself she'd once owned. Claire tried reaching out the first few days. Texts, calls, emails. "We need to talk." "You can't just disappear." "It wasn't what you think." "I love you, Jacob. Please don't do this." I didn't reply. Silence was my answer. By the second week, she switched from remorse to rage. "You're being cruel." "You're punishing me for being honest." "You've changed." She was right about that last part. I had changed. The man she could guilt into forgiveness didn't exist anymore. Meanwhile, life started to rebuild itself around me. My woodworking orders picked up through local fairs and online sales. Eli helped me set up a small website. I started running again in the mornings, just me and the hum of the town waking up. Therapy continued every Wednesday. Dr. Lyman said something that stuck with me. Closure doesn't come when they apologize, Jacob. It comes when you stop needing them to. That line became my compass. One evening, I ran into one of Claire's co-workers, Jenna, at the grocery store. She hesitated before saying, "I probably shouldn't tell you this, but she's been seeing that guy from her office." "It's not going well," I just nodded. "Yeah, I figured." "She keeps saying you set her up to fail." "That you became distant just to trap her into cheating." I almost laughed. "She taught me independence, Jenna. I just learned it faster than she expected. By April, I'd saved enough to rent a small workshop behind the cafe in town. Ellington Designs was officially a business. I posted a photo of my new workspace online, sunlight spilling across rows of wooden frames and polished tables. That post got more attention than I expected. Clients started booking commissions. For the first time in years, I felt proud without needing anyone to validate it. A month later, Claire showed up at my shop. I saw her through the window before she knocked, hair tied back, eyes tired, wearing that same grey coat she used to wear on our Sunday drives. "Jacob," she said quietly. "Can we talk?" I wiped my hands on a rag, opened the door just enough for politeness. "Sure." She stepped inside, looking around the place like it was something sacred. "You really did it," she whispered. "You built something without me." I nodded. "That was the point." Tears welled up. "I made a mistake. He wasn't what I thought. I thought you'd always be there, waiting." "I was for a long time," I said. "But then I learned how to stop waiting." Her voice broke. "So that's it?" "Yeah," I said simply. "That's it." As she left, I felt the strangest mix of sorrow and relief. Not because I still loved her, but because, for the first time, I didn't. It's been almost a year since I walked out of that kitchen. Sometimes, on quiet mornings, I catch myself remembering how she used to hum when she cooked, or how her hair smelled like rain when we sat on the porch. The memories don't hurt anymore. They just feel like pages from a book I've already finished reading. My days have rhythm now. I wake early, brew coffee in a chipped mug I found at a yard sale, and walk to my workshop as the sun rises over the pines. The town is slow to wake, and I like it that way. The smell of sawdust greets me like an old friend. I run my hands over smooth oak, the grain alive beneath my palms. Wood doesn't lie. It shows every mark you leave on it, every scar, every effort to reshape it. I think maybe that's what honesty feels like. Business is steady. Not booming, but enough to live comfortably. A local magazine wrote a small feature about Ellington Designs, called me a craftsman who turned heartbreak into art. I didn't correct them. Maybe that's true in its own way. Claire still sends the occasional email. The last one came a month ago. "Jacob, I'm sorry." "You were right. I was selfish and scared. I pushed you away because you needed me too much. And then when you stopped needing me, I didn't know who I was anymore." He's gone. I'm back in Franklin trying to rebuild. I miss the version of you who loved me more than himself. But I guess that version doesn't exist anymore. She was right about that. The man who begged for her attention, who defined his worth by her moods, died quietly the day I chose silence over pleading. I didn't reply. Not because I hate her, but because I finally understand that some chapters aren't meant to be rewritten. Yesterday, I ran into Eli outside the diner. He asked, "You ever think about dating again?" I smiled. "Someday. But right now, I'm kind of in a relationship with peace." He laughed. "That one's hard to beat." Later that evening, I drove out to the lake where Claire and I used to go during better years. The air was cool, the sky bruised with sunset. I sat on the hood of my truck, listening to the water slap against the dock, and realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, not at myself. She once told me I made her feel like she was the only reason I breathed. Maybe she was right back then. But now, I breathe for myself. That's the quiet truth of it all. She wanted me to be independent so she could feel freer. But independence doesn't mean freedom when it's built on lies. It means freedom when you stop chasing what broke you. So yeah, Claire Ellington taught me how to stand on my own. She just didn't expect me to walk away once I did. The irony isn't lost on me. She built the man who could leave her. And I did, without hate, without noise, without turning back. Now, when the morning light spills through the workshop window and the smell of fresh-cut cedar fills the air, I know what peace feels like. It's not loud. It's not revenge. It's the sound of not needing anyone to be whole.